Hello, we made it. We're here. Episode 1, The Ball Card Show. I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we're stoked.
We've been waiting for this for a while, and it's a reality now.
Finally, we get to talk, and you can't do anything but listen.
We thought, who in the world would bring us in to talk about a hobby and sports? No one in the world, and sure enough, those poor suckers over at Press Play Podcast.
They said, hey, it sounds like a great idea. Let's make this happen.
I like to gamble. Let's bring in Jason and Gary.
I mean, they're not very good looking, but that's what podcasts are for.
And that's how you kill airwaves. Thanks for having us. This has been a great ride, everyone.
Good times.
Couple of ugly guys with no content. Well,
faces made for radio.
That is the show. Yeah, I have heard that before. But we are actually here to talk about something specific. Sports cards, ball cards. Well, maybe just start out with a reason that we even call this the Ball Card Show.
That would be my wife.
And my wife. It's a way of demeaning
what
us.
We do.
Yeah.
100%. So what it boils down to is my wife, whenever she goes to Walmart or to Target, I always ask her to check the sports card stock to see if there's anything there. Used to be all
naturally.
Right, because that just makes sense to me.
That's what you do if you love your spouse.
Absolutely. So it used to be all the time there was stuff there. And in the last 18 months or so, you have to get super lucky and be willing to knock an old man over if you want anything from the sports card aisle.
Right. Old man, young man,
kid,
recently self-employed, air quotes.
Homeless man, somebody on meth, whatever. The sports cards are not available unless you get super lucky.
The margins don't discriminate.
Not at all. Not even a little bit. So she would always get to the point where preemptively say, I'm going to Walmart. Yes, I will look for ball cards. And every time I would come home from a day of work, because I'm lucky to have a job where I can stick my head into a store or stick my head into a card shop when I have time, I would walk in with a ball card setup, a bag of something, and she'd be like, oh, did you find more ball cards?
Yeah.
Well, then Jason started collecting again too, and our wives are friends.
We're not saying that we've scheduled vacations around
ball cards.
Yeah, and release dates for distributors and large retailers.
No, I don't.
Who will remain unnamed until they sponsor us.
I don't want to be that much of a geek, but maybe it's happened. But then Jason's wife started in on the ball cards thing, and they make fun of us. So we turn the tables
until we hit a massive card in a break that pays for half a vacation,
right?
Or goes into the collection they never hear about, but we're just in a better mood that week.
Yeah, you buy a $75 Topps Trevor Lawrence box, and you get lucky and smack a 44 autograph that you sell for $1,000.
It's not a bad day.
No, it's a great day.
You pick one spot on a little old basketball prism, and you hit a Luka rookie that pays for a trip to Pinehurst.
Absolutely.
It can happen.
Those are the days. We've been there and done that. Maybe you have too.
And you always win in breaks.
Just like you always win at the casino, right?
Exactly. You just got to give back to the city. You're just making a down payment. You're putting your life on layaway. It's eventually going to pay off. But if any of the things we said in the last couple minutes connect with you, you too have the bug. You are a sports card collector, a ball card fanatic, and we're glad that you're here. Maybe we take a minute to introduce ourselves. So Gary, take it away. Tell us your story. Tell us how you got into collecting.
Well, it all started many years ago. No, I'm not going to do that to you. So I collected as a kid. You probably did too if you're listening to this show. I'm a little bit older than Jason, so my first distinct memories of opening packs were 84 Donruss, Don Mattingly rookies. I really got heavy into it. Every spare dollar that I had, walked down to the corner store in 87, 88, buy a 35-cent pack of Topps. If you got a birthday gift that was $20, which back then was a massive birthday gift, you could buy an entire wax box of cards for $20.
You get a new Huffy for $20.
Yeah, but I would rather have the cards at that point in time. So I collected as a kid till I was probably 13 or 14, got into high school, played a lot of sports, didn't have time for it, kind of dorky and geeky at the time to me. So I didn't do it at that period of time. Then as a 21-year-old, I was probably 22 really. We got a hockey team here in Columbus. And so I decided I was going to start collecting hockey cards, which I had never touched before, didn't know anything about. And I got back into the hobby a little bit, which then I got into some football as well. I didn't do anything with basketball or baseball then. It was basically football and hockey. Did that for a few years and then my kids came along and I had no more money for like 18
Strange
years.
how that happens.
No money at all. Jason's in the middle of it now. My kids are grown now. And so 3 or so years ago, I got back into collecting and got back into it before this recent explosion that we've had in the last 18 months, and have got to see that transition from being able to go to a local card shop and buy an entire hobby box of Prism basketball in 2018 for $200, which when I got back into the hobby, that blew my mind that a box of cards cost $200. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
I'll buy a pallet of cards for $200.
But I got back into it, and now this year's Prism released at like $3,000 for a hobby box.
Which
two and a half years later.
Conversation.
It's crazy talk.
Smoke is coming out of my ears as I think about
so
it.
that's kind of my hobby story.
Yeah.
What about you, Jason?
So for me as a kid growing up, we all did the sports cards, mostly baseball. My dad is a big sports card collector, and he loves to build sets. So what that means is no card is wasted. It's a little different from today where you sort and throw stuff in the trash, right?
Or donate it to Goodwill.
Right. Commons got no use, but Dad would build sets, and then there weren't a lot of like approved. I don't want to be too harsh, but there weren't a ton of approved activities when I was little, especially. We grew up in a very conservative, religious environment. Like, we didn't go out a ton, but one of the things we love is cards. So my dad started this like card club for all the kids in the neighborhood. They would all come over to what they called the parsonage, which is like where the pastor lived, because my dad was a pastor. And
it's not as creepy as it sounds.
No. But we would all do like trading and cards. And I remember a lot of like 80s wax baseball. Dad bought a set of tops for the year we were born for each of us. And I remember like trading for Gary Sheffield. I had a big PC, Gary Sheffield. Eric Davis is my ultimate PC from that era. But I remember going through it, and I kind of hung on to some cards. I would chase after the guys that I liked or whoever was popular. Then when I got older, I didn't pay as much attention because like basketball started taking over, and you had this junk wax baseball era, and it kind of faded out because one of these days I was going to have my own card. See, I didn't know if you knew this about me. I was convinced that wherever life took me, I was going to end up in the big show. And as it turns out, being 5'8" overweight and in Bible college doesn't guarantee you a look.
You're not going to get that draft spot.
I'm still waiting and holding out hope.
Go walk on for the paints.
Chillicothe Paints. If you're from Ohio, you would enjoy that very much. Or Google Chillicothe Paints.
Yeah, independent league baseball team.
Is it still open, or will it literally be a paint store?
They're still there. If you're not familiar with independent league baseball, basically these kids get like $400 a month
and crash a couch.
And they crash a couch at somebody in Chillicothe's house.
But on LinkedIn, guess what it says? Professional baseball.
I mean, technically they're getting paid. I technically was a professional football player. I got paid. Yeah. I wasn't in the NFL by any stretch, but I did get paid.
But you do have more sports injuries than
100%. My knees are shot. Yeah, back to your story.
So I kind of stepped away from the hobby, but I've always been a collector, like a serial collector. There's something I'm into, and I'm obsessed with it. At one point, I got into collecting paintball stuff. It wasn't even playing paintball. I was married, and I kept buying this stuff because I couldn't believe there was a paintball gun that could shoot like a bajillion paintballs a second. So I bought this. I bought a scuba tank for it with compressed air, so I'd never run out. It was stupid, right? Stupid. I sold it at a massive loss. Was done with that, got into some other stuff, bought all kinds of guitars and amps, got into that, got rid of that, got into vinyl records right as that was getting ready to boom. That was a good investment. That was sound. And then somewhere along the way, I stumbled onto a YouTube video of sports cards, and Gary is the resident nerd. You're like, of all my friends, anybody that would know something that's a total loser move, like collecting cards in your middle age,
what I do.
It would be Gary, because I knew you collected those stupid vinyl pops.
Oh yeah, for sure, I still do.
Like awkward childlike bobbleheads. Anyway, I'm sure I'll be I could be into that in a couple years. You never know. But anyway, I reach out to you, and you're like, oh yeah, this is the thing. Get into it. And I got in right as everything was blowing up. You could still occasionally find some Prism blasters with Zion in it. You could find, I remember complaining about spending $40 on a Prism blaster of 1920.
Which goes for $380 now.
Yeah. What a ripoff. First box, sealed box of Prism I opened, I pulled the Zion rookie.
Yeah,
just the
which
base.
At the time, this is what's crazy.
That was like $75 at that time.
Yeah, well, and what's crazy about it is when that happened, I stumbled into a stock at Walmart, and this was back before there was a line of people standing for 8 hours waiting for the vendor to show up. I stumbled into like 6 or 7 mega boxes and some blasters of Prism at our Walmart and bought them with the idea of flipping them, and I could not I tried for 2 weeks to sell them for $80 a piece. I paid $40 a piece for them. And I could not sell them. Finally got them moved. They sell for $700 a piece right now, less than 18 months later.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it's one of those things too, like with our wives, it's like, no, I'm telling you, if I just buy this and hang on to it, because, we don't expect to find any now, but if I walk in and there's 30 boxes of it, I don't care what anybody says.
Yep, all of it.
I can complain about everybody else buying and flipping. I'm buying every single one. I'm taking it from the kid that has like a candy bar in the other hand. Deal with it.
Yeah, and if you bring your dad over here, we're going to have an issue.
Bring your dad over. We'll go viral. I'm not scared.
World
Say what
star.
you will. I have walked past that empty aisle so many times. I have emotional, deep wounds within me.
Well, and the worst thing is when you walk by the aisle and it's not completely empty. There's just a lonely box of Leaf draft football.
And then you buy it.
You buy it. You don't really want it, but you buy it anyway.
By the way, I have a ton of that in my eBay store and lots. If you're interested, you want to get in on a burrow real cheap, I got you,
Got
bro.
you covered.
Oh, man.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Want to hear more about your favorite TV shows and movies that are on countless streaming services?
Then listen to Up Next with your new favorite hosts, me, Kristen Aviles,
And me, Christina Walter.
Every other week, we'll highlight one genre, but 2 movies or TV shows, one old and one new.
We'll let you know what's hot and what's not from your favorite
Or least favorite.
streaming services.
And be sure to stay tuned to the end of each episode where we shout out an artist whose name you should know for their talent in the industry.
So follow us to stay up to date with your favorite hosts from Up Next.
A part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
You've been pining, you've been waiting for Rega and Rhoda to get back together. We got you. Press Play Podcast. We're ready to go. We're going to have our podcast with everything that you want. Browns, Cavaliers, Indians, Ohio State, the national scene. Kenny Rhoda, Michael Regai back together again. Make sure you keep your ears open. It's happening right here on Press Play Podcast. See you then.
So yeah, we're here. We're collecting. We've been into it now for quite a while. I know Gary and I both have been into getting stuff graded and flipping, and we're deep into the hobby. We're in on the breaks. We like to gamble. We like the thrill of hitting a big card on a Raz or playing poker for a card. I don't know if you knew about that.
That's a fun one that a lot of the Facebook groups are starting to do now, utilizing some different apps out there to take some of the randomness out of winning a card in a line. We play poker for it, and just like buying into a line, but there's a little bit of skill involved at least, although sometimes it feels like you're just getting bent over and reamed by the software.
Metaphorically speaking.
Metaphorically speaking.
But yeah, we're into this hobby big time, and really what we're hoping to do is just talk about connecting that nostalgia and bringing it up to what's happening in the market now.
Yeah, and not making it all about making a profit. Listen,
Right,
there's
right.
nothing wrong with buying cards to flip them and doing that to earn a little bit of money and as a side hustle or to fund the rest of your hobby. But there's still something to be said for collecting what you like, and maybe down the road it's worth a lot of money. But in a perfect world, to me, man, it's I buy a card now, or I pull it from a pack, and it's somebody that I really enjoy, and like my biggest PC is Ed Oliver. Nobody knows who Ed Oliver is really, unless you're a deep football fan. He was a top 10 draft
The
pick.
Late Show.
Yeah.
Is that-
No, that's a different guy. But he's a defensive lineman for the Bills. He was a top 10 draft pick a couple of years ago. I pulled a couple of his shorter print autograph cards that year and decided I was just going to start PCing him. And a lot like you, when you got into vinyl or anything else, when I decide I'm going to PC something, I get pretty aggressive. I think my PC of short print, numbered, autographed Ed Oliver cards is upwards of 200 at this point. I've got a couple of one-on-ones. But for me, it's like I'm going to PC that. And if Ed Oliver becomes a Hall of Fame player and somebody offers me $1 million for one of my one-of-ones, I want it to be a hard decision. Does that make sense? Like, I want it to be a difficult decision because I have an emotional connection to this piece of cardboard that means something to me.
Yeah, and I think that's something that connects us in this hobby because, you know, when I was collecting vinyl or something, there was an experience or a memory, or, you know, I remember driving down the road and listening to this song or this guitar solo as a kid. But when you're engaged with this collecting market currently, you just find yourself cheering for the sport in a different way. You find yourself engaged in another way.
Well, yeah, it's like the best of being a fan of a team and the best of fantasy sports. Some of the sports card markets, baseball depends a lot more on the season, what values of cards are going to do. Basketball cards, it's game to game.
Yeah.
And if you're in the flip game, it's all about finding Kevin Porter Jr. put up a 50 spot last week and his cards shot up 30% for 2 days.
Yeah.
And if you were ready, you could make a killing.
If you're like me and you forget to organize your stuff, and then a week later you're like, what happened?
Well, when you literally have 30 monster boxes filled with cards just sitting in your office surrounded by vinyl pops, and it's a maze, and your wife
Can
will
we talk
barely
about
open
getting you
your
out of the
office.
vinyl pop game?
No, we can't. I like the vinyl pops. I've got the whole Care Bear
Compare
set.
that to sports cards right now.
Two completely different markets, two
Because
completely
one's
different
cool.
buyers. No, neither one's technically cool. We're all nerds.
Which one's less cool?
Oh, pops for sure.
Okay, good.
And if
That's
any
a
of you,
start.
if any of you out there also collect vinyl pops, you're my people. But let's also understand and admit that most
That
people
you,
who
like,
collect
have a
vinyl
black
pops,
light in your room
I say
and
most
chug
people who collect
Monsters.
vinyl pops fit a
Love Dance Dance
certain-
Revolution.
well, they fit a certain demographic that we can all just kind of picture. Yeah. But it's hard when you do have a ton of stuff. I was telling my wife the other day, and she just looks at me. I'm sure your wife looks at you like, "Are you kidding me right now?"
What a magnificent beast. That's
Well,
what I usually.
I was no, she doesn't. I was sitting
Maybe.
talking to my wife, and I realized, like, just on my desk in my office that is semi-sorted, I've probably got $8,000 worth of cards,
Right.
literally just sitting there,
Loose.
that I need to do something with.
That's not the stash.
No, I should probably sell them,
But
but it's a little
Ed
overwhelming.
Oliver might.
But Ed Oliver might blow up. I don't know that I want to. That's the
Those
issue.
linemen, man, they get real streaky hot.
Well, I mean, but again, so there's a perfect example. Predicting or making guesses on where the market's going to go is a huge part of this game too. For the longest time in football, it was quarterbacks only. If you were going to invest and put money into something with the idea of making money off of it, you only bought quarterbacks if it was
Still
football.
largely that way.
But we've branched out into receivers do really well now.
Yeah.
Running backs a little bit. I think
Pop culture is a huge piece of this too.
Oh, for sure.
If anybody makes news, all press is good press. Sometimes it is that way with
Except
cards.
Deshaun Watson. His stuff is tanked.
That's not a very timely.
Well, I mean, it's timely. It's just, again, not all press is good press when it comes to cards, is what I'm saying.
Okay, touche. Anyway, moving on away from quarterbacks and incidents that may or may not get us in trouble down the road.
Or him in trouble. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm just watching the train wreck.
Yeah. So, changing subjects. Please change the subject.
Change
But I
away.
think when we have these players that we're excited in and we're chasing, and throughout the season you can have these big bumps and shifts, or they go off and all of a sudden their market shifts somewhere in there. People my age and older, mid-30s and older, I think there's a part of you still, if you collected as a kid, that's like, but what about just collecting the player?
Yeah.
Like, what about just I like them and I don't care, and so I want this? Do you feel like the price point and the value of all these short prints and serial numbers and autos and just rare releases or high-end releases is kind of squeezing that piece out of the game?
Only if the person that you decide or people that you decide to PC are the like big name, super hot, valuable things. That's what always makes me chuckle when I see people put ads out on Facebook for what they're buying. For my PC, Luka Doncic and Patrick Mahomes. Shut up.
Oh, no. My son loves Tom Brady rookies. They're his favorite.
This isn't your PC. You can absolutely PC a guy and buy his really cool stuff if you find somebody that you are a fan of. A perfect example of this from back in the day, if you're my age, I'm mid-40s, or Jason's mid-30s, was Chris Sabo. I grew up a Reds fan. Chris Sabo was awesome.
Rec specs.
He had the goggles when nobody else had the goggles. And
his bat was a little lighter than everyone else's.
If you want a PC, if you want a PC Chris Sabo, you can PC Chris Sabo and do it on the cheap. Modern stuff. Say you're a Cavs fan. You're a Cleveland Cavaliers fan. We're from Ohio. If you haven't figured out some of the cities we're talking
just
about.
Big air hug right now. Just a pause.
Right, just pause and
What's
air
a moment
hug.
of silence for what's happened in this organization?
That's long
okay,
enough.
we're back.
Okay. But if you're a Cavs fan, perfect example, if you want to PC Anderson Varejao. Anderson Varejao, if you're a Cavs fan, you loved Anderson Varejao when he played for the Cavs. You can buy any short print, any rookie card, any Anderson Varejao card you want, other than maybe a 1-of-1 from something like Immaculate or Flawless for less than $20. I mean, and that can be something that you collect and that you can take pride in and try to put a series together, put a rainbow together of that guy. If you want to put a rainbow together of Patrick Mahomes rookie cards or, Luka Doncic stuff,
just sell some organs on the black market.
You better get yourself a solid $500,000 ready
so
to
yeah,
go.
let's talk through this.
Yeah.
Like just ballpark for me. What are some of these Mahomes rookies? It doesn't have to be the rarest, lowest number, but like.
Well, it all depends on the product. The accessible products would have been like Prism or Contenders,
Optic in there,
Optic a little bit. So I mean, that stuff, now raw Donruss, that stuff raw now.
It's a premium product now. Have you seen their release price?
Everything's a premium product right now. But a Mahomes rookie now raw, you're going to be anywhere from $250 to $1,000, depending on what it is. Unless it's a silver Prism, then you might be like $1,500. Graded PSA 10s. Get your checkbook out, boys.
Checkbook.
Get your checkbook. Get your home equity line out.
American Express Black.
Yeah, whatever it is, you better get ready. I know that
sell your crypto.
His Flawless of 5 rookie just sold for $780,000. I think $780,000 in a BGS 9. Yeah.
I mean, these numbers are real. So
no, yeah, this is not just throwing
a couple
weird
weeks
stuff against the
ago,
wall.
we had was it Upper Deck Exquisite LeBron?
Yeah, 25 of 25. The patch was dirty. It was nice. It was super nice.
It's also $5 million.
Yeah, big dollars. Yeah,
million. All of your Dogecoins.
All of them.
All of them.
Yes. Now, some of you, if you invested in Dogecoin when it was
maybe half
3 cents, you might be able to go flip that into a nice LeBron rookie. So,
or maybe you're like me and you got out of that mess to get into the OTCs and just been drowning for the last several months. I know how to buy at the height of it. So, speaking of that, I'm also the guy that just a few years ago, this is what we got into with collecting. We both got into crypto.
Yes.
And you were riding the wave, man.
I was. I got in before everybody else. And
Bitcoin was up to what, like almost 30 grand, which was 27?
Yeah, 27-ish.
Unheard of.
I got all my friends into it. I was like, it's never coming back.
You wrote
down.
a book.
I did write a book.
He had Gary has for those of you listening at home, Gary had an ebook of walking you through how to pick it out, altcoins, how to make money. And for a month I did. And Bitcoin was at the peak. And then within a month of me getting started, I single-handedly brought the whole market down. I can be the most unlucky person you've ever met in your life.
It's all right. My nephew did the same thing. You guys together colluded to just crash the entire crypto market for 20 months. But the good news is if you were brave and stuck it out, it's insane again.
Well, I have a portfolio. It's just not accessible because they locked it out in the U.S.
Is it on Binance?
Yeah.
It's just all stuck there?
So there were a couple of the small coins I got into that are actually taking off. So it's now getting to the point where there's enough money in there for me to all right, well, who do I need to talk to about this?
And now I have to pay taxes on it.
Well, maybe I don't want to worry about it.
Move to Canada. So yeah, that's from a collecting standpoint, one of the things that I find ties those of us who collect things together is that very rarely is our collecting bug limited to one thing. It is all over the place. And if we find something that really sparks our interest, it may take over the majority of our collecting brain, but there's always going to be that corner that has Funko Pops.
And vinyl records.
Yeah, I still don't get that one, but it's cool. You do
It's
you.
analog sound, man. You can't compress it.
Yeah, but
You're
when
in
you
the room.
trade, you're trading with senior citizens that can't hear what you say.
Oh, that's where you're wrong.
Oh, and hipsters.
And
who,
hipsters.
who I don't want to hear what I
I'm
say.
very relatable. I'm pretty hip myself.
You have hips.
Yes, I do.
That's true.
In the words of Shakira, thighs like what? Wait. No, that was a Cisco thong song.
You really
My hips
have
don't
lost
lie.
me.
My hips don't lie.
Can you quote
And I'm
Will?
starting to feel
If you
now.
could just quote some Willie Nelson, I would be good. I would know what was going on. I don't know what you're talking
Yeah, not enough outlaw country in the world for you.
That's
you
true.
rebel riding a tricycle around.
about. 100%. Can-Am Spider. It's only a tricycle if the wheels are in the back.
It's a inverted tricycle that's
So
even more
say it-
safe.
say it right.
It's even more safe.
Absolutely. 100%. Plus, my wife will ride it with me.
If you can see the look I'm giving Gary right now, it's complete disapproval of who he is as a human being.
It's okay, though. I'm good with that.
All right, let's wrap this up just thinking about right now what's going on in the market. So there's all this madness. It's hard to even find stuff. It's getting expensive. There's these massive hits because of these low pop and serial numbered and autos and these special release high-end products. The market is going crazy. Collectors are trying to follow up with it. And while it's easy to get frustrated, there's also some really cool stuff happening in the market. So I'm going to give you a second to think about yours, but I want to talk about what is one thing you're excited about that's happening this year in the sports card market. And for me, the exciting thing is this. And it began happening, I would say, probably around that 2018 era with a couple of key rookies. But baseball and trading is on the rise. The prospecting game was kind of what it was all centered around for several years. That first Bowman Chrome, first Bowman Color, some of these prospect cards, trying to pick that player out that's going to be the gem before everybody else. But now we're talking some of the flagship top stuff. Some of the stuff that I remember as a kid that I was told later is like, oh, that's not worth anything. That's the cheap product, this and that. Now it's cool to see people chasing after and in lots these people they're excited about. Like for me, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. showing up to spring training just not fat and being a monster.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I thought he was going to be the Adam Dunn, Prince Fielder, billion strikeouts, 30 home runs, but the dude's killing it. Like, last I
He's
checked,
batting
he's
almost 400.
Yeah.
He's like 386. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he may have some genetics, that
Maybe.
would incline him to rip the cover off the ball.
I mean, his first 2 years, he kind of looked like he ate his dad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it helps that he got rid of that.
Well, let's not be too harsh with the larger baseball players because there's still a chance I could get called up. Chillicothe Paints, if you're listening, I'm
My
ready.
phone's up.
I'm ready. I'm ready. If you need a 5'8" first baseman,
Yeah.
right-handed, I've got it all. I've got it all ready. So for me, the fact that baseball is kind of hitting its stride again in the collector space and even in the value as you're seeing that climb, I love it. I will say this. I hate non-licensed baseball products.
See, that's where I'm going to differ from you. I don't necessarily like non-licensed products, but that's what I'm excited about right now in the hobby. So what's happening with non-licensed products is you can actually get a hold of them. And they are catching up a little bit. The reason that I think that non-licensed products are going to really take off down the road is that Topps is about to enter the non-licensed game. Topps does not have a license for NFL or NBA products. Panini has had that exclusive license for 6 or 7 years.
If you don't know what that means, just to boil it down, when you buy their cards, if it's a non-licensed product, you will not see the logos of the teams on them.
Or the team name.
Or
You'll
the
just see
team
their
name.
city and the player name.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. And for the longest time, non-licensed products were looked kind of down upon. But now with the hobby being as crazy as it is, sometimes that's all you can get your hands on as a collector. And Panini making Prism cards for baseball, I think, has been a big thing because Prism is such a hot release for everything else. But Topps is about to get back into the game with football and with basketball. They're recent release of the Trevor Lawrence box set for football was a huge success. And there's already been leaked photos of this coming year's Topps football release, stacks of Joe Burrow autograph cards where he's signing stuff. I think that their entry back into the non-licensed world, we're going to get Topps Chrome again for football and for basketball, which will be so dirty. It's going to be so good. Is going to, I think, give a lot more credence to the non-licensed side of things. So that's what I'm excited about.
I think there's so much for us to talk about. And over the next few episodes in this first season, we want to break down a lot of the things that have changed in the game. We got breaks where people are buying a portion of a product and getting a chance to hit something big. We've got grading, which has become so ridiculous that many graders are backed up. They're projecting that they're going to be back in a few months. I'm telling you, it is not going to be back to normal.
Yeah,
it's not going to be back to normal with PSA. And a lot of these other ones are just going to get the traffic. It's going to happen again. The game has changed. Collecting, what are we looking for? How do you get the most value out of your collection? Where do you source it? How do you find that gem? I had some success in the last year buying a collection, a larger one, and taking some chances, and it ended up working out really well for me. It'll work out better if PSA ever tells me how some of these cards graded.
For less than $300 a card?
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, there's just so much to talk about in this season, and we can't wait to jump into it with you.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. We are so excited. We're hopeful that we can bring you some really cool interviews. We've got some connections that might be able to get us a rep from some grading companies, maybe even from Panini or Topps. If that happens, we'll let you know in advance. Hit up our Facebook, hit up our Instagram, hit up our Twitter with questions that you want us to ask on your behalf, and we will ask them even if we think they're stupid.
There are no stupid questions.
Just stupid people.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us on the Ball Card Show.
The sports podcast for the sports collector.